can you be good at both managing and leading? In this video, I'm going to discuss whether or not it is possible for someone to be good at both managing and leading. And if so, what some of the key traits are that will help make that happen. Welcome to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified when I release a new video every week on leadership, change management, culture, and more. You can also connect with me on social media. So I was recently reading an article about how companies should have their managers lead and their leaders manage, basically implying that they are two different skill sets and you need to have people in your organization who are good at one or the other. As I read through the article, I started to get really frustrated because it felt like the author was trying to put people into a box and say, this is the way it has to be. In fact, the article goes as far as to say that you can't be good at both. I respectfully disagree. I believe that you can be good at both managing and leading. In fact, I think it's imperative that you are good at both. So let's break this down a little bit further. What do I mean by managing and leading? What do most people think of when they hear those terms? Managing, to me, implies a tactical approach, whereas leading implies a strategic approach. When you think about a manager, you might think about somebody who gets things done through others. They're responsible for hitting a set of targets that have been set for them. They may have annual goals that they have to make sure they hit. They probably have quarterly goals and then monthly goals. And the goals usually relate to either sales, production, client satisfaction, profit, loss, etc. A leader, on the other hand, thinks more strategically. They think about where the company is going. They think about the vision and the values and the culture. A leader inspires and motivates people to follow them to a certain vision. So let's take a look at some of the differences between managing and leading and see how you can be good at both. The first difference between a manager and a leader is planning. Managers tend to plan in terms of tactics and how they are going to achieve the goals that have been set for them. Leaders think bigger. They think in terms of the overall strategy and where the organization is going in the future. To illustrate this point, let's say that you work for a retail organization and you notice that sales are down. A manager might come up with a plan to try and increase sales by putting more items on promotion or maybe running a few more advertisements in the local newspaper. A leader, on the other hand, would take a broader approach. They might take a look at the entire retail landscape and try and figure out how they can position their stores to become the go-to retailer in the market. They would look at ways to differentiate themselves from the competition. They would look at ways to create a unique customer experience. Basically, a leader would come up with a plan that would help the organization to win in the marketplace, whereas a manager would come up with a plan to try and just increase sales. The next difference between managing and leading is execution. Managers are typically responsible for executing on the strategies that have been set by leaders. This doesn't mean that managers don't have any say in the strategy. Oftentimes, managers will be involved in helping to develop the strategy. But ultimately, it's the leader's job to set the strategy and the manager's job to execute on it. One of the biggest mistakes that I see new managers make is trying to change the strategy once they get into the role. I've seen this happen many times where an ambitious manager comes into a role and they have some great ideas about how they can improve things. And although these ideas might be good, if they don't understand the strategy behind why the company is doing what it's doing, they end up making changes that actually hurt the organization. Here's a quick story that illustrates my point. I used to work for a manufacturing company that had a policy of not outsourcing any of our work. We believed that if we outsourced any part of our business, we were essentially putting our jobs at risk. One day we hired a new plant manager. This guy was very ambitious and he had a lot of ideas about how he could improve efficiency in the plant. He believed that if we just outsourced some of our production to a company in China, we could save a ton of money. Now, his idea made sense from a financial perspective, but the problem was that he didn't understand the strategy of the company. By outsourcing production, he was essentially putting our jobs at risk, which was something that we were trying to avoid at all costs. The next difference between managing and leading is motivation. Managers tend to motivate people through carrots and sticks, while leaders tend to inspire people through their vision and their passion. Let me explain. When I say carrots and sticks, I don't mean that managers are only focused on punishment and reward. Of course not. But oftentimes managers have to motivate their team members to perform because they are responsible for hitting certain targets. If their team members aren't performing, the manager might have to give them a poor performance review, which could result in them not getting a raise or even getting fired. On the flip side, if the team members do perform well, the manager might reward them with praise or maybe even a bonus. Now, there's nothing wrong with this approach to motivation, but it's not the same as inspiring people to follow you because of your vision and your passion. That's the job of a leader. Leaders motivate people by painting a picture of the future and getting people excited about it. They communicate their vision in such a way that people want to follow them. The final difference between managing and leading is accountability. Managers are typically more focused on holding people accountable for their actions, whereas leaders are more focused on inspiring people to do their best work. This doesn't mean that leaders don't hold people accountable. Of course they do. But it's usually the manager's job to hold people accountable because they are responsible for the performance of the team. If a manager notices that one of their team members isn't pulling their weight, they need to address it. Otherwise, the whole team suffers. So the manager might meet with the team member and try and figure out what's going on. Maybe the team member is struggling with something personal and that's affecting their work, or maybe they just don't understand what's expected of them. Whatever the case may be, it's the manager's job to get the team member back on track. Leaders, on the other hand, are more focused on inspiring people to do their best work. They want people to be so passionate about the vision that they just naturally take accountability for their actions. Okay, so now that we've covered the main differences between managing and leading, let us talk about what I believe to be the key traits that are needed to be good at both. 1. Communication. Good managers and leaders are good communicators. They know how to communicate their vision, their values, and their expectations clearly and concisely. They're also good listeners, and they know how to build relationships with people. 2. Humility. Good managers and leaders are humble. They know that they don't have all the answers, and they're willing to learn from others. They're also aware of their own weaknesses, and they're not afraid to ask for help. 3. Courage. Good managers and leaders are courageous. They're willing to take risks, and they're not afraid of failure. They know that failure is a necessary part of success, and they're willing to learn from their mistakes. 4. Integrity. Good managers and leaders have integrity. They always do the right thing, even when no one is watching. They're honest, ethical, and they build trust with everyone around them. 5. Passion. Good managers and leaders are passionate about what they do. They love their work and they're excited about the future. Their passion is contagious and it inspires others to do their best work. If you have these 5 traits, you're well on your way to becoming a great manager and a great leader. It's important to note that being a manager and being a leader are 2 different roles, but they're also complementary roles. The best organizations have managers who can lead and leaders who can manage. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified when I release a new video every week on leadership, change management, culture, and more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.